Hi students, in this session we are going to discuss the second part of the lesson, the lost spring. But before we go to the second part, let's have a quick recap of the first part. The first part was about the story, Sometimes I Find a Rupee in the Garbage. So the author was Anis Jung, would come across Sahib every morning. She always found him searching for something in the heap of garbage. So one morning she asked him, "Why do you do this?" And he replied, "I have nothing else to do." She told him to go to school, but there was no school in his neighborhood. So she asked him whether he would study if she started a school. So Sahib was very happy and he said that he would go to her school. But she did not intend actually starting a school in the near future. She realized what an impact her words spoken casually had on Sahib. And Sahib's full name was Sahib-e-Alam. It means the Lord of the Universe. But the poor boy wandered on the roads along with other poor children barefoot like him. And the author talked to Sahib's companions also. One of the barefoot boys told her that it was a tradition to walk barefoot. But the author did not agree with them. She asserts that a perpetual state of poverty is the real cause. So some children are lucky. Their prayer to get shoes had been granted, but the rag pickers remain barefoot. So the rag pickers live in Simapuri, and Simapuri is actually very close to Delhi, but there is a world of difference between the two places. So like all other families of rag pickers, Sahib's family had come from Bangladesh in 1971, and they came here because their homes and fields were destroyed by storms and they had nothing to live on there. And about 10,000 rag pickers lived in Simapuri, and they live in mud structures with roofs of tin and tarpaulin. And they lack all the civic amenities like sewage and running water, and but they have voter identity cards and ration cards. This enables them to cast their votes and buy food. So they move about and pitch their tents wherever they find food. And rag picking is actually their sole means of earning a livelihood. So Sahib used to stand outside a club and he watched young men playing tennis, a game which fascinated him. So he wished to play tennis. Someone gave him a pair of discarded tennis shoes. So it was like a dream coming true. Of course, playing tennis was out of his reach. So Sahib finally he got a job in a tea stall. He was paid 800 rupees a month and all his meals. Perhaps he was not happy. He had lost his carefree life and his freedom, and he was no longer his own master. Now let's go to the second part. That is, we are going to discuss the story, I Want to Drive a Car. The main characters in the story are Mukesh, who is a child working in the bangle industry, and then you have Mukesh's father, Mukesh's mother, and then Mukesh's elder brother and his wife, that is elder brother's wife. Now let's start with the story. Do you know anything about cars? I ask. Mukesh insists on being his own master. I will be a motor mechanic, he announces. So here the writer met a boy named Mukesh who aspired to become a motor mechanic. And also she asked him if he knew anything about cars. I will learn to drive a car, he answers, looking straight into my eyes. His dream looms like a mirage amidst the dust of streets that fill his town Firozabad, famous for its bangles. So looking straight into my eyes is with confidence and determination. And looms like a mirage is nothing but seems that it will be true in the future. But actually it will not be so. I'm still in the middle of. So every other family in Firozabad, is engaged in making bangles. It is the center of India's glass blowing industry, where families have spent generations working around furnaces, welding glass, making bangles for all the women in the land, it seems. So glass blowing industry is nothing but industry which is related to making of glass. Furnace is a closed room or container where heat is produced, and welding is the process of joining the metal or glass pieces by heating them. So here what happens is, the boy was confident and replied that he would learn to drive a car. So his dream was far away from reality, and although the boy was confident, he would succumb to the social pressures, and he lived in Firozabad, which was famous for glass bangles. So the writer felt that the boy's dreams would not materialize and gradually get influenced by the dusty streets of Firozabad. And she wanted to say that as every family in the town of Firozabad was involved in this glass bangle industry, so would Mukesh do with the passage of time. And she tells us that Firozabad was the main town of India for the glass blowing industry, and the families had been involved in working at furnaces and then welding glasses and making bangles for generations and generations. And they made so many bangles that it seemed that they made bangles for all the women of the world. Mukesh's family is among them. None of them know that it is illegal for children like him to work in the glass furnaces with high temperatures, in dingy cells without air and light, that the law, if enforced, could get him and all those 20,000 children out of the hot furnaces where they slogged their daylight hours, often losing the brightness of their eyes. So here dingy is nothing but dark and dim, and slog is to work hard. Daylight hours is hours of the day where there is sunlight, and brightness of the eyes here refers to the power to see. So here what happened is, Mukesh's family was also involved in the profession of glass bangle making, and they were not aware of the law. They did not know that it was unlawful to force a child to work in such glass furnaces. So the workplace was very hot and dark closed room without any ventilation. So the writer felt that if the law would come into force, it would rescue almost 20,000 children from these inhuman places where they were forced to work hard, ending up losing their eyesight also. Mukesh's eyes beam as he volunteers to take me home, which he proudly says is being rebuilt. We walk down stinking lanes choked with garbage, past homes that remain hovels with crumbling walls, wobbly doors, no windows, crowded with families of humans and animals coexisting in a primeval state. He stops at the door of one such house, bangs a wobbly iron door with his foot and pushes it open. So here, volunteers are freely offers to do something. One who freely offers, and here stinking is a bad smell. Choked is blocked with garbage, and hovels is slum. Crumbling is to fall down. Wobbly is unsteady. Coexisting is nothing but present at the same time and place. And primeval is prehistoric. Bangs is hits. So here what happens is, Mukesh was happy as he took the writer to his home. He felt proud as he informed her that it was being renovated, and they walked down the streets which were full of garbage and gave foul smell. So the streets were lined up with slums which were unsteady, and the walls were all falling apart, the doors were unsteady, and there were no windows, and were full of families where people lived along with animals. So they reminded the writer of the prehistoric man who lived just like animals. So Mukesh stopped in front of one such door. He hit it hard with his foot and pushed it to open. We enter a half-built shack. In one part of it, thatched with dead grass, is a firewood stove over which sits a large vessel of sizzling spinach leaves. On the ground is in large aluminium platters are more chopped vegetables. A frail young woman is cooking the evening meal for the whole family. Through eyes filled with smoke, she smiles. She is the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Not much older in years, she has began to command respect as the Bahu, the daughter-in-law of the house, already in charge of 3 men, her husband, Mukesh, and their father. So here, shack is nothing but a roughly built hut, and thatched is covered with dry grass. A vessel is a container for cooking food. Sizzling is to make a hissing sound when frying or cooking. And platters is nothing but large plates. Chopped is to cut finely. Frail is very thin and weak. And here eyes filled with smoke means her eyes are filled with the smoke coming out of the firewood stove. Command respect is she is worthy and so is respected. So here what happens is the house where Mukesh lived was partially constructed hut, and in one corner was a firewood stove made with dead grass, and a vessel with spinach leaves was kept on it on the ground, and there were also more plates with chopped vegetables in them, and there was a thin and young woman who was cooking the evening meal for the entire family. Her eyes were also full of smoke which was actually emanating from the stove, but she was still cheerful and smiled to see the writer. She was the wife of Mukesh's elder brother. Although she was not much older than Mukesh, she was a responsible person and was worthy to get respect from the family as the daughter-in-law of that family. So she took care of all the 3 men, that is her husband, Mukesh, and their father. So when the older man enters, she gently withdraws behind the broken wall and brings her veil closer to her face. As custom demands, daughter-in-law must veil their faces before male elders. In this case, the elder is an impoverished bangle maker. Despite long years of hard labor, first as a tailor, then a bangle maker, he has failed to renovate a house, send his 2 sons to school. All he has managed to do is to teach them what he knows, the art of making bangles. So here withdraws is to goes back, and veil is nothing but a piece of fine material which is worn by women to cover their face or hide their face. Impoverished is very poor, and labor is hard work, renovate is to repair. So here what happens is, as Mukesh's father entered the house, the daughter-in-law hid behind the wall and covered her face behind her veil. And it was a tradition for the daughter-in-laws to hide their face in the presence of older male members of the family. So the elder here was a poor bangle maker. He had worked hard all his life, first as a tailor and then as a bangle maker, and he was still not able either to renovate his house or to send his sons to school. He had just taught them, managed to teach them what he knows. What he knows was only the art of making bangles. That is what he taught his sons. It is his karam, his destiny, says Mukesh's grandmother, who has watched her own husband go blind with the dust from polishing the glass of bangles. Can a God-given lineage ever be broken? She implies. So here what happens is, destiny is actually fate, and God-given lineage is here a profession carried on through the generations of family. What is the profession? The glass bangle making is the profession. So that is called God-given lineage. Now here what happens is, Mukesh's grandmother justified her son by saying that he was destined to make bangles as it had been their family profession, and she had seen her husband become blind due to the dust from polishing the glass bangles. So she said that their family had got this art of bangle making from God, and so they had to carry on this tradition. They cannot leave it just like that. So born in the caste of bangle makers, they have seen nothing but bangles in the house, in the yard, in every other house, every other yard, every street in Firozabad. Spirals of bangles, sunny gold, paddy green, royal blue, pink, purple, every color born out of the 7 colors of the rainbow lie in mounds in unkempt yards, are piled on 4-wheeled handcarts pushed by young men along the narrow lanes of the shanty town. So here actually yard is an open area of at the back of the house, and mounds is nothing but heaps. and unkempt is not taken care of. Piled is kept one on top of the other, and shanty town is nothing but a town that is full of small, roughly built huts. That is called shanty town. So here what happens is, they were all born in a particular caste which had to follow the profession of bangle making. So all their life they had been making these bangles, and they have just seen these glass bangles, nothing else. They were everywhere in the backyard, in the next house, in their yard, and in the streets of the town. So there were huge spiral bunches of bangles in different colors like gold, blue, pink, purple, green, and there were bangles of all the colors of the rainbow. So further the writer says that there were bangles in the neglected yards also. So they were dumped on handcarts for sale, and they were pushed by men along the streets of Firozabad. So, and in dark hutments, next to lines of flames of flickering oil lamps, sit boys and girls with their fathers and mothers, welding pieces of colored glass into circles of bangles. Their eyes are more adjusted to the dark than to the light outside. That is why they often end up losing their eyesight before they become adults. So here, hutments is encampment of huts. Hutments means encampment. That is a collection of huts. And welding is, we all know, joining. So the writer describes the environment where these bangle makers work. So they were small, dark huts, and children would sit next to the line of oil lamps whose flames were unsteady. So they, along with their parents, so what happened? They joined the pieces of colored glass into circles called bangles. As they spent a lot of time in the dark, what happened is their eyes would not adapt to the bright sunlight. So many of them lost their eyesight before gaining their adulthood. So Savita, a young girl in a drab pink dress, sits alongside an elderly woman soldering pieces of glass. As her hands move mechanically like the tongs of a machine, I wonder if she knows the sanctity of the bangles she helps make. So it symbolizes an Indian woman's suhag, auspiciousness in marriage. So draped is actually a drab is actually a faded or colorless, and soldering is nothing but joining. Tongs is nothing but an instrument with two movable arms joined at one end, and sanctity is the state of being scared or holy. Auspiciousness is good omen. So here what happened, there was a young girl by name Savita. So she wore a faded pink colored dress, and she was sitting with an elderly woman, and they were joining pieces of glass to make bangles. Her hands moved like a machine, just like the tongs of a machine. So the writer wondered if Savita knew that bangles were scared. So they were a good omen for a woman's wifehood. So it will dawn on her suddenly one day, when her head is draped with a red veil, her hands dyed red with henna, and red bangles rolled onto her wrists. She will then become a bride, like the old woman beside her who became one many years ago. She still has bangles on her wrist, but no light in her eyes. So here dawn on her is she will realize, and draped is covered. So what happened is Anis Jung taught that Savita would realize this when she would become a bride. That day she would cover her head with a red colored veil, color her hands with henna, and then wear red colored bangles on her wrist. So the elderly woman who was sitting next to Savita also became a bride many years ago. But she was still wearing the glass bangles. But what happened is she had lost her eyesight now. Ek waqt ser bar kana bhi nahi kaya, she says in a voice drained of joy. She has not enjoyed even one full meal in her entire lifetime. That's what she has reaped. Her husband, an old man with a flowing beard, says, I know nothing except bangles. All I have done is make a house for the family to live in. So here what happened is this ser is nothing but a unit of measuring quantity, and reaped is to receive as a benefit.
So here what happened is the elderly woman complained that she had not eaten even a seer of food, little. That is, seer is a unit of measuring quantity, and the woman wants to say that they are so poor that they cannot eat enough food, and that is the benefit that she has received by adopting the profession of bangle making. And the woman's husband has a flowing beard, and he also, what does he say is, he says that he does not know anything other than bangle making, and all that he has been able to accomplish all these years is to make a house for his family to live in. So hearing him, one wonders if he has achieved what many have failed in their lifetime. He has a roof over his head. So the writer wonders that probably the old man has achieved something which many other people have not been able to achieve. At least he has been able to secure a shelter for his family. The cry of not having money to do anything except carry on the business of making bangles, not even enough to eat, rings in every home. The young men echoed the lament of their elders. Little has moved with time, it seems, in Firozabad. Years of mind-numbing toil have killed all initiative and the ability to dream. So here what happened is, rings is nothing but a sound which is repeated, and echo is to repeat. And the lament is the complaint. Mind-numbing is nothing but boring. And toil is nothing but physical hard work done to earn a living. So what happened is, this problem was very prevalent in all the homes which carried on the profession. So they did not know anything else other than bangle making, and it did not even provide them enough food also. So the young man who had entered the traditional profession also had the same complaint. With the passing time, what happened is, there was no improvement in their condition. As they had been doing hard work for countless number of years, they did not have any ability to do something else or to dream of something else. So why not organize yourselves into a cooperative? I asked a group of young men who had fallen into the vicious circle of middlemen, who trapped their fathers and forefathers. Even if we get organized, we are the ones who will be hauled up by the police, beaten and dragged to jail for doing something illegal, they say. There is no leader among them, no one who could help them see things differently. Their fathers are as tired as they are. So, here vicious is nothing but cruel, and hauled up is dragged or taken away. So, the writer suggests them to form a cooperative. That is, she talked to a group of young men to get out of the clutches of this cruel middleman who had trapped their elders. So the men said that if they dared to do something like this, what happened is, they would be dragged and beaten up by the police and sent to jail. So the acts would be termed to be unlawful or illegal, and the writer felt that as they had no leader, they could not think of doing things differently. So they all were so tired, that is, the men and their fathers. They talk endlessly in a spiral that moves poverty to apathy to greed and to injustice. Listening to them, I see two distinct worlds. One of the family caught in a web of poverty, burdened by the stigma of caste in which they are born, and the other a vicious circle of the sahukars, the middlemen, the policemen, the keepers of law, the bureaucrats, and the politicians. Together they have imposed a baggage on the child that he cannot put down. Before he is aware, he accepts it as naturally as his father. To do anything else would mean to dare. So here, spiral means a never-ending, that is a continuous process, like a circle. Apathy is lack of concern. Greed is the selfish desire. And then distinct is to separate. Stigma means dishonor. Bureaucrats are government officials, and imposed is forced upon. Baggage is the burden, and to dare is to do something courageous. So here what happens is, the men complained that it was a continuous process. That is, their poor condition led to lack of concern for their problems, and this made them greedy and led to injustice. So the writer envisioned that there were two separate worlds. One was of such families who were stuck in poverty and the pressure of doing the traditional work, that is profession, according to the caste in which they were born. And the other world is a never-ending cycle of the money lenders, the middlemen, the policemen, law keepers, government officials and politicians. So both of these worlds had forced the young boys to follow the family traditions. And the young boys get into this profession and become a part of this vicious cycle even before they realize it. So if they did anything else, it meant that they were challenging these two worlds. That is what she tries to say. And daring is not part of his growing up. When I sense a flash of it in Mukesh, I am cheered. I want to be a motor mechanic, he repeats. He will go to a garage and learn, but the garage is a long way from his home. I will walk, he insists. Do you also dream of flying a plane? He is suddenly silent. No, he says, staring at the ground. In his small murmur, there is an embarrassment that has not yet turned into regret. He is content to dream of cars that he sees hurtling down the streets of his town. Few aeroplanes fly over Firozabad. So here what happens is, hurtling down is nothing but moving around. So the boy had not been reared up to be bold so that they could dare to go against this system. So the writer was happy to sense that Mukesh had the spark in him. That is, he repeatedly said that he would be a motor mechanic one day and he wanted to go to the garage and learn the job. But the writer asked that as the garage was at a distance from his home, how will he go and do? So Mukesh kept on insisting that he would walk up to it and then he will learn. So she asked him if he dreamt of flying planes. So the boy became silent and he refused. He did not know about them as he did not know about planes at all. So not many planes flew over Firozabad. So as he had only seen cars moving around in Firozabad, his dreams were restricted up to them. So now let's sum up what we have learned, children. So Mukesh belongs to a family of bangle makers in Firozabad. Most of the families in the place were unaware of the illegality of their action in engaging the children in such a hazardous industry. So even though children in such families take up the family profession, Mukesh wants to be a motor mechanic and drive a car. So Mukesh takes the author to his house, which is one among many of the dilapidated houses of bangle makers, like constructed in stinking lanes. And Mukesh's father had been unable to change the condition of the house and the family in spite of working hard many years. So the family now consisted of the father, the grandmother, the elder brother and his wife and Mukesh. So now according to Mukesh's grandmother, once born into the caste of bangle makers, they have no way out but to surrender to their destiny. So here the grandmother recalls how her husband finally turned blind after working for years in the glass blowing industry. So the lives of the people of Firozabad are centered on bangle making. All their lives they work with colorful bangles only to go blind in their later years. And the author observes a young girl Savita and ponders over the life of women in that region. Before marriage they make bangles possibly without ever realizing its sanctity, and after marriage they wear them. So the only boon some of these people have is a roof over their heads, but they are unable to manage a proper full-time meal. So even after years of slogging, there has hardly been any change in the scenario of Firozabad. That is, people seem to have stopped dreaming. The injustice of the social and legal system is the proverbial last straw for this already desolate section of the people. So the young men are bogged down by the police, the deceptive middlemen and their own destinies, leaving them no choice but to give in to the imposed way of life. So the prospect of Mukesh attempting to break this cycle seems to the author like a ray of hope, a small step but a start nevertheless. So the values we get from these both stories, that is, sometimes I find a rupee in the garbage and I want to drive a car, is thousands of sahibs and Mukesh are condemned to live a life of misery and exploitation. So this grinding poverty and traditions compel children to work in most inhuman and hostile conditions. So here the author Anis Jung succeeds in highlighting the plight of such unfortunate children. I think you have understood the story, both the stories well. Thank you, children. Have a great day.